Welcome in, welcome in, welcome once again to the newest edition of 3 in, 3 out, the most unique Seahawks recap show in the multiverse. I'm your host, Clinton Bonner, and I am joined by the one, the only, the great Brandan Schultz. And Brandan, yesterday, New Year's Eve, not the best outcome for our Seahawks. I'm hoping for the folks in the PNW, we could turn the page, and those UW fans out there that we know are members of the flock, and also Huskies fans about to play their game versus Texas. Well, I guess we could just send some Hawker and love their way. I know you're a Montana guy. How do you feel about UW? Do you have any love for those dogs?
Well, it's the thing is that I grew up when UW was kind of in their heyday and winning national titles. So I lived in Washington during that time, but I'm also being an Oklahoma Sooner grad.
Sure.
They are playing the Texas Longhorns. And so I am extremely anti-Longhorn.
Nice.
And therefore I may be the biggest Husky fan there is this Monday.
It's so facto. Go Huskies. We hope you fare better than our poor Seahawks.
I kind of want to get into the nooks and crannies of your opening, because if I were to break this down, Clinton, when you do your welcome in, because you do 3 intros of shows throughout the week. And it's like, when you say the title of the show, if you hear Clinton chuckle a little bit, it's because he's very proud of himself that on the very first time he got through it and remembered which show he was introducing. And so if you were to run it back, you can recognize that moment. Only one take this week. Clinton nailed it. He was very happy with himself.
Going to give myself an in. Thank you, Brandon. Going to get an in because our Seahawks, we didn't get too many ins, and we are going to call a bit of an audible on 3 in, 3 out for a couple of reasons. But I texted you today. I said, look, timing wise, going to be tough to rewatch this fully and do the full prep. And then there's also the fact that 3 in, 3 out is meant to be about the nooks, the crannies, the nuances. This game didn't feel like it had a lot of nuance, Brandon. This was like, if we're going to go try and pick things apart, how many times can we possibly say to the audience, here's a play where we didn't tackle well, or here's a terrible angle we took here, or here's a play where Najee Harris looked like the next coming of Jerome Bettis. Like, I just didn't think it was going to be worthy for anybody to do that. So instead, we got a little something else planned. Why don't you tell folks what we're going to be doing today instead of the regular scheduled programming?
I am real thankful that you're calling this audible, because we had a great party last night. Nice. The whammy was involved. I don't know where it is. And if I were to take some time to try and find it, we might not have a show this week.
The very physical, very real whammy. Now, the only thing I need to know, though, we're not going to have to use it this week. We do not start with an in. There will be no NBC. There's no Brandon. But I need to know. I just need to know. Did you cover the 3D printer? Was that not touched? The whammy, throw it around like whatever at the Stanley Cup at a drunken party afterwards, and whatever. Take it in the pool with you. The 3D printer that we spent $100K on, is that safe and sound? Is that accounted for?
Well, I don't know if I jinxed it this week, because we did print up an MVC trophy.
Yeah.
And so we did drink heavily out of the MVC just after the game, because it was like, well, this is going to we're either going to use it or it's going to go to waste.
Right.
Let's party like it's 2024. And the whammy got involved, and then it's gone.
Well, sometimes you party hardy. That's the way it goes on New Year's Eve.
So what are we doing this week?
So we're going to talk. We're still going to talk Seahawks. We're going to talk about this game, but we got a couple topics that are just a little bit, maybe a little more broad stroke that I also thought were worthy of it. And you had the reaction show last night. I thought you did a great job riding solo. Really good job by the flock, also helping you with some great commentary. And you brought some of these things up, but I thought they were maybe a bit more macro topics, but fun stuff to still talk about, digest, debate. And then we're also going to look ahead to next week. Look, we ain't dead yet. I will remind the audience that if you go hit the rewind, Brandon's suggesting you hit the rewind to this intro so you can see me do a little Wyman chuckle for myself. If you hit the rewind about 4 weeks ago, my prediction was, I was like, hey, I think we're going to go 3 in, 1 down the stretch. And I think the Packers are going to beat the Bears in week 18, and we're going to make the playoffs still. Well, lo and behold, we're in position to go 3 in, 1. We'll talk about the Cardinals a little bit later. And the Bears, who are playing pretty darn good football, man. Fields looking like he's solidifying that job next year, and the Bears could do whatever they want with those picks, the one from the Panthers and their own pick. And the Packers are playing good too. Jordan Love is put together a really good season. So that'll be intriguing. I think it's more interesting to be like, will we show up in Arizona? Like Arizona just showed up to play the Eagles and took them. Are we going to show up next week? And I think we'll get to all that. But yeah, Brandon, it'll be fun. And but I guess starting with the Bears, because it's why do we want to talk about the Seahawks after this one? But what are you seeing from Fields? I guess just a NFL wide question. Do you think the Bears stick with him? Have they seen enough where now they take the Panthers pick, their own pick, and they just build around Fields as opposed to saying we got to go get Caleb or go get May?
The good thing that I think that they've been able to do is at least show off of the skills that Fields has. So if that's not the type of quarterback that they want to roll with in the future, then it's more attractive now, I think, for teams to look at that and say, oh, hey, well, we can work with a running quarterback that has that kind of skill and develop around that. I think that I still don't know if he's developed as a passer quite to where, especially a guy, because you look at Lamar Jackson as kind of that blueprint at quarterback of a guy who runs really well and throws. And I think he's surpassed, the type of quarterback that we saw out of Michael Vick many years ago. So I think that's the type of guy that you want, but I don't know if I'm convinced on the passing side with Fields, but he has enough of those, he has enough athleticism that it's exciting at least. And he is putting together a solid stretch of games right now.
Yeah, he certainly kind of got against the ropes, and organizationally they had a very odd year. I mean, I know we'll talk about our Seahawks in a second. They had some weird stuff happen earlier too. And right. EJ Snyder could wax about that for hours on end. I do wonder his position on that. I think it'd be really interesting. If I'm the Bears, I saw enough in Fields to say this guy could do it. Let's just keep building around him. And guess what? Even if it's like a year or two later, okay, well then you got an amazing offensive line, you made the trade for Montez Sweat, and maybe you bolstered your defensive line or wherever you're going. And then there's still opportunities. If he's not the guy, it's not like you're going to be 10-7 next year. If he's not the guy, he's not the guy. You'll get a chance. You can figure it out later. So anyway,
we are big Bears fans this week, though. So
huge.
Trying to really get into this depth of knowledge. It's they're my number 2 team in the NFC this week.
Absolutely. Next to our Seattle Seahawks, of course. But since we're on the quarterback path, it was one of 5 topics we're going to discuss. I did want to just chat about, might as well go there. Number one, how did you feel that Geno Smith played? Just flatly watching the game, watching it back, whatever you did. What was your interpretation of how Geno played?
He played a solid game. The one mistake he made was allowing the ball to be, coming from his blind side, getting the ball fumbled away. And it came at the worst time because that was the moment where you thought that here they go. They have the Steelers just kicked a field goal.
Yep.
You're only down 7. You've got 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And this was the moment to where the offense could have answered. I based on the way things were going, the Steelers weren't allowing anything other than field goals. And that's really all they did in the second half. So I had my questions of whether or not they could actually put together a touchdown drive in the second half. And with the 7 minutes left on the clock, I actually was doing the math in my head. Like, okay, if they drive down and kick a field goal, do they have time to get it back? So then they could drive down. And, how many field goals are we going to be able to get in this amount of time? They probably would have had to score a touchdown. And that Steelers defense was just so darn stingy in the red zone.
Yeah, and I do want to talk red zone later too, because I think we hurt ourselves quite a bit in the red zone also.
Oh, you don't like the fade passes to the corner of the end zone? Is that...
or we could talk about it now, right? So no, let's jump there. We'll come back to Geno in a second. So a very good friend of mine who I partner with in a fantasy football league, he's texting me throughout the game. He's like, dude, what is up with your fades from the 2 and 5 yard line from the set? He's like, what are you doing? He's like, why these? And last week too, he was watching that when Geno missed, was like Parkinson one time and then JSN one time, and they weren't specifically fades, but they were still deep shots to the corner pylon. And he was texting me last week, like, why'd you guys use underneath? Where are the rubs? Where are the slants? Just where is any of this cross, the meshing? And we get back down there, Brandon, and it's these low percentage balls to the corner on fades. I don't know, man. Like, do we rewind the clock 20 years to the stroke of midnight last night and say, okay, we're back to late 90s or early 2000s ball where this is it? the jump ball in the end zone. There was the one time too where they isolate Parkinson to the right-hand side and they put the trips left. And I'm like, ooh, I think they're going to just let Parkinson go do his thing again, body up and just put it on his body.
Right.
Nope. That was the one of the DK fades and just sitting there and then we got to settle for a field goal. So to answer your question, no. And the creativity still within the deep red zone there, that green zone, right? 10 yards and in, it's not there, man. So that feel for the game we talked about earlier in the year, I was harsh a couple of weeks ago about, look, I think Shane Waldron is not the guy, and I would have fired him 4 weeks ago. Then we win a couple of games. Maybe it masks it a little bit, but I felt like, I know we didn't run a lot of plays, and I know we were actually pretty successful with the plays we had, though our volume of plays was low, not the offense's fault. But when it mattered most, I think the creativity went out the friggin' window, man. And I don't know how else to square that except for say, I think that's on the offensive coordinator.
The way that I square it in that situation, because this is in the fourth quarter where they're down 7, or no, they're down 10, and they get it down to the 5, right? And that's when they were taking those fade shots at the end zone.
Yeah, but there was two. There were yes, and the previous one as well. The other one where Myers had a chip shot too. There was 2 drives, kind of either back to back or broken up by something in the middle.
Yeah, it was broken up a little bit.
Yeah, but there was 2 fair in the second half where we were still like the fade route to the left-hand side was like the go-to. And I'm like, man, like,
yeah,
what do we, so for me, it was like 2 different drive occasions where we stalled because of decisions.
The way that I kind of could explain it away in those final moments is because they were coming up on that 2-minute warning. It just made me think that they were trying to drop back, get rid of the football. So that way they had all that so they could execute the plays on one side of the 2-minute warning and then not have, because they were running out of timeouts. I think it was just out of necessity of trying to reduce the amount of time it took for a play that we saw a lot of fades in that moment. Cause obviously you're not going to run the football from the 5 because then you're burning clock. I think that it was just, that's the easiest, shortest type of play. And you're trying to keep as much clock because you're going to have to try and get the ball back because you're 10 points down. I was almost ready for them to settle for a field goal when they were around the 20 because
take as much time as you possibly could. Right.
Well, that way because they got down to, what was it? The 30-yard line or so. And, so whether or not when you get to the 31, when you get to the 23, right in there, you're at the 2:43-minute mark.
Right. Yep.
In terms of the game, make Myers kick a long one, and then you're just playing to get the ball back, and then you can score a game-tying touchdown. I would have been okay with that too, but yeah, I wasn't real happy with the fades. I think up until that point, there was maybe only the one that you were talking about earlier. I don't like them, but if it were just that one, it would have been fine. And then I think, like I said, I think it had to do more with the clock those other times.
I think you're right. And I was watching that too. And I remember thinking to myself that because we would do like lots of Charbonnet checkdowns on that drive and getting a couple of chunks here and there, just kind of getting downfield a little slower than we needed to. And I remember because I was sitting there in a room with non-Seahawks fans and a couple of kids there, and I'm explaining to them, like, look, like they need to score before the 2-minute warning. I was like, so that they could kick off and at the first play, there's another stoppage, which ended up not even, it was right on that line anyway. But I felt like the urgency from that 3 minutes to 2 minutes wasn't enough. At some point too, I was like, dude, spike it. Who cares? Spike it. Just spike. And I don't care if it gets the second down, third down. Doesn't matter, because what you're saying is you run out of downs and kick the field goal, because that's good. That's a very real possibility anyway. And in fact, was the outcome. We kick the field goal, then we do the onside kick. If we're just a little more hustle, maybe spiking the ball there, reserve the time is the most precious resource by far at that point. Just get in a situation where you don't have to do an onside kick and you only have 2 timeouts left because red flag Carroll decided to throw one for God knows what reason. So, but
I at first when he threw that challenge flag,
at first,
I thought it was because the dude was marked inside the 5.
Okay, but he was,
right. And then he wasn't. And so, like you, I was wondering, well, then what did he throw the flag for if they had already marked him out at the 5 where he stepped out?
Yeah. Right. And then I think he thought it was before the marker that he might have been out. And Pete he's shown to be
He's been
flipping.
good on challenges this
Oh, no,
year.
he's been better, but he's still, I think the process for like when to throw it, he's like, well, at that point in the game, I don't really care about timeouts. He said that in the press conference, like,
Oh,
no, man, kind of still got to care about timeouts there, Pete. But that's, what, I think that takes us to a different point that we wanted to talk about also. For me, that the biggest Pete Carroll one, the biggest one to me, Brandon, was that beginning of the game. Why don't you set the narrative on this one? Because I know you know what I'm talking about.
oh yeah. Well, it was in the first quarter. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they had just turned it over on downs on fourth down. So they'd used up, I guess it was only 3.5 minutes of clock. And Seahawks get the ball back and immediately go 3 and out, which they complete a pass over the middle to Noah Fant and gets them within 1 yard of a first down. They're actually on their own 41, so they're on the positive side of the field. And you're thinking, okay, they could go for it because in essence, they did create a turnover by stopping the Steelers on fourth down. They're on the positive side of the field. They only need 1 yard. And it would have been a fine time to go for it and be aggressive. But then, like I said in the post-game show, I understand Pete Carroll's point of view in this moment because he's thinking, I've got a great weapon in Michael Dixon. I'm going to pin the Steelers back. To this point, they've only had one drive, so you don't necessarily know what they're going to do. The defense just made a fourth down stop. And so with a backup quarterback, why not pin them deep and then see what your defense, expect that your defense can get the job done. Now, after an entire's worth of game and watching them miss tackles, that seems like a really bad decision in hindsight.
Yeah, it does. And I know I asked you to look up like how long the 80-yard drive was that ensued, but before we get to that, I hated the decision in the moment. I understood it's Pete Carroll ball and you got to live with that. And I especially after we saw what we saw last week, I'm like, oh, cool. We're in tush push territory. We got our guy. Let's bring DJ Dallas in, bring in Tree Trunks Dallas and let him do his thing, or pitch it out to K9, or let Sharps go between the tackles and get one, or do a typical Geno sneak. I really thought it was playing with extreme caution and cowardice early. And I realized Carroll's going to have the mentality that my team number one, Dixon could pin this guy within the 8-yard line or something like that, 5-yard line. He does not execute. He did it later in the game too. Did not execute on one. It went into the end zone. So he did not have his strongest game. And with that, I think Pete is just game to game, like, nope, the guys are going to do it today. The guys are going to do it today. Meanwhile, we just got run over by Tennessee. And then obviously we see what happens in this game where they bullied us. It was manhandling up and down the trenches. I understand he couldn't foresee that and he believes in his guys, but my word. So we punt, and then how long was that next drive? That took like what, another 8 or 9 minutes?
Yeah, it was 8 minutes. So 8 minutes plus the 3.5 that they had with the first possession. The Seahawks had 2 minutes of offense in those 4 plays, and then they did have the rest of the first quarter. So yeah, when you look at the time of possession, it all came from the first quarter. And you say that Pete Carroll couldn't have foreseen it. I think you can kind of foresee it, though, when the Steelers are playing, when they have the ball on their very first possession, and they're not going for it on 4th and 1. They're going for it on 4th and 5.
Yeah. Right. And
you know that they're going to play aggressive. If they're playing this aggressive on the very first possession, they're probably going to be playing aggressive throughout the day. They don't have anything to lose because they know they need wins to try and make the playoffs. Mike Tomlin needs a win to make sure that he gets his winning record for the X amount consecutive season. You've been shown on their very first drive that they're going to play this game aggressively.
I was being a little overkind to Pete, I think, right? And I really was, and I appreciate you calling me out on that because it's a bad decision. You're home, be the aggressor, and they're just like the week before. They're chunks of time that evaporate, and then you're at the podium at the end of the game saying, "Oh, we just didn't get enough attempts to K9. We couldn't get him going." Well, no, you know what? Like, no crap. You couldn't get him going. Yes, the shoulder, but he has 10 touches, 10 rushes, and Charbonnet has two rushing attempts because the quarter evaporated like a Thanos snap. It's gone. You cannot give away if you're going to defer. That's the other thing, like I'm so anti-defer at this point because of stuff like this.
Right.
But if you're going to defer, then I think you have to match that mentality with some aggression to take some share back, especially in quarter one. And if you're not willing to match that philosophy of, okay, we're gonna get the ball back at the start of the third quarter, and we have a chance to steal 4 or 5 minutes right now, you take that freaking chance. The ball sails into the end zone. It's a net of what, 30 yards, essentially 20, whatever it was, 30 yards. And
oh yeah, that's right. 30. They got to midfield. So they weren't on their side of the field. They weren't on the Steelers side of the field just yet, but they're awfully close.
Yeah, they were right at the 50, basically, right? Yeah. So it was a net of like 30-yard punts, and then, which is like a play or two sometimes.
And it was a play or two, yes, because on the very first play, they throw to Deontay Johnson, and they pick up 20 yards. Yeah. So then they're 10 yards short. They do back-to-back runs with Najee Harris, and they're at midfield.
Yep, and you gave away all that position, and they got the ball back, and you've lost whatever momentum your defense gave you to start the game. You pissed it away, is what it boils down to, and really deflated. Hated that decision. You did.
I hated that Deontay yes, Johnson almost gifts us the ball back.
I know,
and I guess they made the correct call on that, but man, that was frustrating. That he fumbled it away, and he happens to swat the ball with his hand as he's out of bounds.
What a strange rule. I mean, it's the rule. It's fine. They got the rule right. I didn't know it. Either. I mean, I guess if you're going out of bounds, it makes sense. But it's like, wait, you lost possession. So just because you're touching it when you are out of bounds, you no longer possess the ball. It's like, right, that's not yours anymore, right? So you gave up that right when you dropped the ball. But the rules.
It doesn't seem like he should be able to then recover it. But yeah, that's probably one of those things that it just never happens to where. Why would you need to write the rule any other way? Like the dude had the catch and loses possession as he's going out of bounds. Just a weird play overall.
Super, super weird and frustrating, and a little foretelling as how the game would go, because it got more and more frustrating. You mentioned Deontay Johnson catch right after that, right after we had the cowardly play there. And I wanted to go back to Geno versus Rudolph, and it's not so much Geno versus Rudolph, but what the Steelers did to make life easy for Mason Rudolph versus what I felt like. I thought Geno played really, really well. I mean, some of those plays in his pocket presence to create basically like, okay, guess I'm going to do this myself. Like that's how it felt a couple of times. Like, okay, here's a free runner. I'll step this way, make a move, buy myself, like buy myself a fraction of a second, and then still throw a seed 20 something yards downfield. Like he did that over and over. The JSN touchdown, down the right-hand side to DK, where he stepped up and did the little shimmy in the pocket. He played really well. Mm-hmm. And he had to create so much within really tiny spaces. And then you got Mason Rudolph, it's like Brock Purdy show. It's like, okay, these dudes they're wide open because we're overloading the box because we can't freaking tackle. So like, at what point can we be two things? What point can we be kind to our quarterback? Meaning like we treat him well and give him those types of opportunities. And then there's this whole congregation of Seahawks fans who think Geno Smith's a bad quarterback. And I can't square that one at all, Brandon. It's like, did you watch the game? Did you see some of the throws and the accuracy and the zip and the placement and the haranguing and harassment he was under, and he still overperforms? I do not know what's up with some Seahawks fans who think he's a bad quarterback and not the dude. Give that guy some freaking time, and he will be a Pro Bowler year over year until he's too old.
Well, I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback again this year. We'll see once the voting comes out. But it was, I mean, the contrast and how the game was made easier for one quarterback and tougher for another, it couldn't have been more obvious in this game because, like you said, Mason Rudolph, he just had to hand the ball off over and over again. And then when the defense is just not expecting it, or they would throw in a random pass and there would be zero pressure. And part of that too was the Steelers. I mean, it was just a dominant performance by the Steelers offensive line. So they dominated in the passing game, they dominated in the run game, and they got a couple pressures with Leonard Williams, and you had a nice batted pass from Boye Mafe. That was the extent of the defensive line performance for Seattle. So could you have done more blitzing to maybe, because even when they were hitting Harris in the backfield, we saw times where he would get hit 3 yards in the backfield and still make a 2-yard gain. And so it's similar to Kenneth Walker in that way. Sometimes he's getting hit in the backfield and yet still gaining yardage. But you're having to find, and that's why I was a little bit worried about this game. We talked about how similar the Titans and the Steelers are offensively. If you don't hit their running backs in the backfield, they start to gain steam, they get open holes, they're picking up 6, 7, 8, 9 yards. And it makes it a whole lot easier for any quarterback, let alone a backup quarterback.
100%. And demoralizing, gassing, the stands being filled with at least 25% terrible towels. That's a terrible job, but it's demoralizing. You're on your home turf and you're being pushed back every time, 6, 7 yards, almost every single time. Like you said, you get a dude in the backfield you can't tackle, or you get what should be a favorable matchup, or 2 dudes on one guy and you can't bring him down, or you get postered, you get posterized where he stiff arms you and you're on the turf. Tough day. And then I'd say, flipping it to the other side, the moment that we needed this, we did a nice job. Like we talked a lot in What If and other shows about what's it going to look like if we keep Geno clean, especially of TJ Watt. Well, guess what? We did that. We kept, yes, it was some heroics by Geno in the pocket. With that, somehow between Abe and then Stone Forsythe to come in with a little help from friends, TJ Watt, nothing, a clean sheet when it comes to sacks. The one time we give Cross help on the other side, and I feel like K9's got to do a slightly better job on his chip, and they didn't work together is what that felt like to me. It's like K9 chipped, but it didn't help Cross to take that dude one way or the other. Almost like either just 2 waves crashing together. They just cancel each other out. The thing was just charging through. It's like, ooh, you did your thing separately, but you didn't do them together. And then the ball freaking pops out the wrong time. And the one sack they get, they ring it up for a huge play.
Right. And I think really that's where, if anybody, I think the expectation or the kind of that view of Geno Smith that maybe he is anti-clutch to a sense, that plays into that mentality because he's losing the football there in the fourth quarter when you need a touchdown. So I think no matter how well he would have played to that moment, I think that still plays into that kind of basic idea of Geno not getting it done when he needs to do it. So yeah, I don't know if there's much that can be done for Geno in that sense. And it came at the worst time. And we haven't had a whole lot of those, though. I feel like he's been more clutch than he hasn't, apart from a couple of games. And when you play in so many close games, you're probably going to have a couple that don't go the right way.
Right. The volume, that's right. There's going to be some regression or whatever the mean is. It's going to be the sober yin, raging yang. You're going to get it both ways when your volume is high with so many games like that. Hence, he has 4 game-winning drives this year, and hence the broadcast is showing the 2021 replay where the Steelers strip it, where a game where he was filling in for us in 2021, week 16 or whatever, and they strip it on that final drive. So the narrative
do you remember, though, a couple of weeks back when we were on What If, and we were talking about a certain stat that Geno needed to hit when under pressure? Do you remember what that was?
Well, you said 70%, right?
70% is what I thought would be an ideal. Like if he hit that, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
In this game, under pressure, he was under pressure 62% of his dropbacks. So
and just pausing right there, that's an insane number. that's Daniel Jones level duress when we sacked
It
him
shouldn't
11
be over
times.
50. It should not be over 50.
No, 62 to 50, like that variance is huge right there.
Yeah.
You're under pressure 62% of the time. Sorry to cut you off, but like I think people might just hear that and not realize, ooh, is that a lot or is that a little? No, that's bad. That's really bad.
And you're thinking, oh, well, maybe they blitzed him like crazy. No. They blitzed 20. They only blitzed 8 out of 37 dropbacks. They blitzed 20% of the entire game.
Right. Quote unquote, Blitzburg didn't have to. Right.
No,
so they
didn't have to.
And again, I get they got all world Watt there and they have a good line, but 62%. And then yet it sounds like his completion percentage was still quite good. I think was what you were going to get at.
23 dropbacks. He threw it 14 or he threw it 20 times, completed 14. He hit 70% exactly.
That's an insane number. Like in terms of how good that is when under pressure. Most dudes can't sniff, they ran around 50% or
40,
so.
Yeah, 40.
40
probably average.
50 is like good, and 40 to 50, that range is like the average QB, which these are NFL QBs. If they're under pressure, that's how low their completion percentage goes. So for him to be at 70%, that is elite quarterbacking within this game. That's elite quarterbacking.
But elite quarterbacking is hitting 70% for the entire game.
Right. Anyway, that's
what I'm saying. Under pressure.
This is another. That's exactly. Thank you for making that point as well. It's a different level of elitism in a positive way, and yet you'll see people just like bashing him out on Twitter or Facebook, being like, "This ain't the guy. We can't win with this guy." It's like, wait a second, is Gino playing corner? Is Gino one of our linebackers? Is Gino our de facto nose tackle that cannot get a push to save our life? Last time I checked, he's not an Iron Man player playing both sides of the ball. I'm not sure if you can corroborate that, Brandon.
I don't know what more. Like, you can look at stats, you can watch the game. It's just when I think it comes down to the moments where you see what you want and what it's all about your priors and that matching that in certain situations. So I don't know. I've seen more from Gino this year than I feel like we even did last year, but he's just not getting the protection up front that he needs.
Oh, I think that's an interesting point to leap off for at least another minute or so, is like, we've seen, it's not so much a different Gino. It's almost like, in my opinion, even a bit more of a maturation of his game this year. Yes, ups and downs, but again, I think fully caused by the lack of a consistent run game for a Pete Carroll football team, right? Yeah. Lack of a run game, and then lack of protection. And yet we've seen Gino be really, really good. And okay, what's not there this year? The 40 to 50 yard bombs to Tyler and DK for touchdowns. They're not there this year. Oh, why are they not there this year? Because he's under freaking pressure, Brandon. There's no pocket thingy. It's collapsing on him. It's worse than last year.
Yeah.
So what is crystallizing, whether there's going to be regime change, and we'll talk about, I do want to talk about Waldron in a second, whether there is regime change or not, you still have a quarterback on a team-friendly deal. Mm-hmm. And even if it's $30 million next year.
Too much. 30 million, too much.
Compared to the 49 and 55 and 48 and 47, it's like, no, dude, like 30 million for a Pro Bowl level quarterback is, you could build around that. And folks are like, well, he's getting old. He ain't that old. Like, show me, it's 25-yard run yesterday. Did his legs look old to you, Brandon, or did he look okay?
No, he looked all right.
Yeah. And the arm, is the arm still lively? He's got some, cannons still left in that arm, or is he all out of bullets? What do you think?
I think when it comes down to the salary aspect of it, we've seen so many teams that they are at their most competitive when they have a rookie quarterback who's good on their rookie deal. And so I think that part of it, that seems more like the blueprint to people than going back and doing the Rich Gannon thing.
Sure. It's less frequent. Doesn't make it less right. And the other, or less likely to happen, the other piece of the rookie quarterback is, okay, you want to play roulette? Go ahead. Like, you don't know. I'm not saying you, the universal you, we. Oh, yeah. We don't know. We don't know and we're not going to be drafting Caleb Williams anyway. Won't be getting May anyway. It's not, we won't be, was it Justin Daniels? I think that's his name from LSU, right? Jaden. So we won't get sniffing Jaden Daniels anyway, unless we trade up and trade the farm to move up. In which case,
we don't know where these guys are going to be drafted. Is Bo Nix going to be there? Is Michael Panik's going to be there? Right. Are they going to be good? Who knows?
Fine, right. And do you want to take them in a third or fourth round or something like that? If they're there, sure. Take your flyers if you want to do that. But this sensationalism that he can't be the guy, it's like you're not watching the same game I'm watching. If that's what you think, give that dude an offensive line and watch him be the man. Watch him get up to MVP style conversation. Not saying he wins it, but it's like a dude you're like, oh wow, Gino killed it this year. If you keep him a little bit clean, he'd be really good. One other major topic I do want to talk about too, Brandon, before we spin it to From the Flock, which of course we're still going to do. The Shane Waldron piece for me, there was also these elements of getting a little too cool for school and getting a little cute. And I like when we mix it up, but man, I still feel like this dude doesn't have a feel for when. Like, when do you do these things? And we're doing it's like, okay, you got an injured running back. Let's run a direct snap to the injured running back
with a backup center.
With a backup center. What are we doing? What? His shoulder's not working too good. What are we doing?
Yeah. And I don't know if that was on the center, Oluwatimi. He may have snapped it to the right spot. K9 may have been late to react, but in that moment, I don't even think that play would have worked anyway, because it looked like they allowed Watt to go off the line unblocked too. So and then K9's going to also have to make a heck of a play to get into open field. So I don't know if that play would have worked, but it certainly didn't work the way that it ended up playing out.
Yeah, and they become big time negative plays. And again, it's those, they're very disruptive. And for those who don't believe in momentum and those things that change the course of games, again, I'm still like, momentum's not real. Like, have you ever really played sports? Have you really, I don't care what level, have you played? Have you watched enough? Momentum, whether you could quantify it or not, certainly is real. And when you have these,
all it is confidence. Plays, when you're in that moment and you are feeling, it's like when you can just run at will over a team with your running backs, and you have that confidence of, okay, this play is going to work. And when you start to build that, then it kind of compounds, because it seems like nothing that we do won't work.
But your point is really smart, man. We're not talking about that, like, momentum is this like mythical thing, where these midichlorians in the ether give beast mode a little extra juice. It's not this thing. It is exactly you framed it. It's confidence building within moments, and then things click because of an attitude. Like, this is going to work. You're not going to stop us. Ooh, and whatever it is, whatever's firing in the individual brains across the team, it's firing more purposefully in that moment, and then the thing clicks, and that's momentum. That's building upon itself. And when you have these negative plays, it disrupts that build. And I think it's a really kind of cool way to frame it. So good job by you. But yeah, Waldron still, it's this, when the season's over, and the season's not over, we could talk playoff scenarios, and right after this, and gets it from the flock. When the season's over, I was thinking already about like doing a show with us about the different chapters that have been this season, because there's been these mega moments. There's been the fire Waldron, the Pete's got to go, this team's back on the right track, JSN breakout, DK's a thug, Gino's not the man, Drew should be the guy, Sharp should be in over K9, and now Clint hurt, he's not going to survive. He's got one more game left in his resume. This can't be the thing. You put all those into the book of our 2023 season, and it kind of tells you we've been pretty rough. That's not a smooth story, Brandon.
No, and that's why the Seahawks sit at 8-8 right now. That's exactly why.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But at 8-8, so I think most folks probably know by now. It's out there. But let's talk playoffs real quickly. Last year, we needed help from the Detroit Lions. We had to win our game, which we did. We all got to rally and watch Detroit beat the Packers in Lambeau and send us to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So, Brandon, what's the simplest way? How the heck do we make the playoffs still? Because we ain't dead yet. What's going to happen?
Sum it up in 2 words: Go Bears.
go. That's it, right? So, I mean, we got to win our game. That's the way it is at this
Which
point.
that's not easy either.
No.
And looking at the Arizona Cardinals, they are a team that can use that same blueprint that the Titans started building, that the Steelers built on top of.
Yep.
They're going to see that. They have James Conner, a dude who can bruise at running back. And the difference is that Arizona Cardinals defense is not good. And what happened when we played the Eagles? A defense that is not good right now.
Right.
And then you have the Titans defense, not that great. But the difference between the Steelers defense and the Titans defense, I think, is that delta that allowed a team like the Steelers to win.
Hopefully all correct there. I agree that the Cardinals defense is still, middling at best, very, very young and not a good team.
It's
not a good defense. They are going to, they want to win. Clearly they're not tanking, and we're going to see a ton of Connor, and we're going to see a ton of Kyler. Kyler's going to get his wheels have been good. He came back from a severe leg injury. That has not stopped him moving it with his feet. That game, the Cardinals Eagles game, I was watching that, and then had to go run some errands before we did what we did last night. And it was 21-6 at halftime, but the Cardinals had dominated that whole half. They had a bad pick six. That was a great return, but a bad ball, like a miscommunication. And the Eagles scored on a final drive with very little time to go in the half. They actually put together a nice drive. At 21-6, I had to get my daughter, take her from my house and bring her to a friend's for a sleepover, kind of cross town. And I'm just sitting there going, all right, they're up 2 scores. But in my brain, I'm like, man, and I knew the Cardinals were getting the ball. I'm like, I think they're going to get back in this game. By the time I dropped my daughter off, had to go to the gas station, get something, come back home, and just put the game back on. It was 21-21. I was like, wow. I was like, oh my God. I was like, they're right in the thick of it. Shows you how the wheels have really fallen off for the Eagles. But I think more importantly for us next week, it just shows you that the Cardinals, they are not packing it in. They're playing very hard for their rookie head coach.
Well, and it shows you too, once the Seahawks, if they are able to get into the playoffs, thanks to a Bears win over the Packers, then there are paths to victory.
Sure.
If they're playing teams. Yes, a team like the Niners going to be real tough. They can run the ball. Even a team like the Rams, I feel like with Kyren Williams, they're going to be able to run the ball. But you look at the Eagles, who they already beat once. You look at the Lions, they've come on, but their defense, I think, still has moments of struggling. And also, I think you can capitalize on some of those. The aggressiveness with Dan Campbell is fun. Like, you can get behind that as a culture, I think, and as a Detroit Lions, although I saw plenty of Lions fans ready to fire him after this week because of some of the decisions he made in game. There is a balance to aggression, and Dan Campbell just doesn't know where that balance is, and that's fine, but it works well as an attitude and a culture. But I think that, again, that's something that if you find yourself into a playoff matchup with a team like that, things could go your way.
Yeah, right. There's more Plinko chips on the board with Dan Campbell. And more pegs on that Plinko board.
It does. It feels like Plinko.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this could be a 5,000, or it could be a zero. Right?
Yeah.
And the zeros are right around the biggest money, right? And that's the way it is. It'll be interesting. This game hurt. This game hurt, and it hurt everything. It was like, wow. It also like the folks on the Seahawks side that are the tear it down crowd. It's hard not to be like, all right, well, this game was pretty good proof of what you've been saying, that this is not good enough and we have to look elsewhere. I'm not willing to give that up yet, or even engage in that dialogue yet, because we got a game to play. And I really do believe the Bears can hang with the Packers. And in fact, I know they can hang with the Packers. Can they pull off the win in Lambeau? I think they can. Fields right now, it's like playing that juiced up Lamar. He's a 1 of 1 or 2 of 2 at this point. Very, very difficult. And that alone is another Plinko chip and 1,000 other pegs on the board. You don't know what's going to happen, right? So let's play it out. Let's see how the season goes. If we get into a situation where we got to travel and go to a dome team, well, watch out. We got to go play in Detroit, got to go play in Dallas. Yeah, they're going to score, because our defense is not good right now. And Detroit is going to run the ball. Like they weren't using Jahmyr Gibbs that much when we played them the first time. They would run the ball down our throats. However, we will put up points, as long as we don't get behind 17-0 and some route. So I'm still, with all this said, Brandon, not giving up hope that we could get into the playoffs and make some noise, because you never, ever, ever know what could happen in particular NFL games. So, like you said,
I might go back and watch some Justin Fields though too, because I wonder if a lot of his success is due to, because I feel like the Bears have kind of found a running game that works for them. And then, so is that making it easier on Justin, or is he developing beyond? That's one question that I don't necessarily have the answer to.
I'll give you my take on it. First and foremost, they're playing a heck of a lot better defensive football.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, we talked a lot today about how that can help out your offense, right? And what time possession, things of that nature. Fields is just playing better. His relationship with DJ Moore has blossomed into what they thought they would have. But you also mentioned they got, Khalil Herbert back, and then Roschon Johnson, their rookie, stepped up. And okay, this week, Deontay Foreman, he took a step back. I think he was out. But they got a three-headed monster, and two of those three dudes are going. You got Roschon, who's kind of the battering ram, and you got Herbert, who's kind of just the quicker, scattier back. And it's very Najee, Jalen Warren-esque. They're moving the ball. And you don't know who's going to get what. I think Herbert had 18 carries, like 124 yards this week. This is Khalil Herbert, and he's finally back from injury and back to full speed. So we talk about this a lot too. It's not just who you play on the schedule, it's when you play them.
Mm-hmm.
And to our benefit, the Packers have got to play a hot Bears team that they don't care about their draft pick. The entire organization is playing to save the coach, save the culture, cement the QB1 as a QB1, and say, no, we have enough here. Let's build around what we got in this room, as opposed to, nope, it's tear down time again. That's interesting. So I don't know about you, but I'll have the Seahawks on one screen. I'll have the Bears right above it. And I probably have some Bears paraphernalia, or like a bear skin rug I could throw over myself, or buy one. I don't know. I'll have to do something for the bear hawker to get it right, though. That's all I know.
What we need is one of those bear logos with the Seahawk head, like we had the Lions logo last year. And we can just, be de facto another, we can have another favorite team inside the NFC North.
Yeah, and I mean the Bears, they're harmless. They haven't been good in so long. It's not a big deal, right? It's like the Bears. We can.
EJ Snyder's been on our show a lot. It's we can root for his fandom for a little bit, as in support of everything that he's done for this show.
Yeah, EJ's great. The bootleg football, for those that don't know, right? And he's a sensational Bears fan, and a really good analyst too. So awesome. All right. Well, we still have From the Flock, Brandon. So let's make sure we honor that and do that. I hope everybody enjoyed the audibleized 3 and 3 out. Again, I thought this was way more fruitful and maybe more organic than picking apart the nuances in a game that just did not deserve. They didn't have nuances. So if no nuances, let's just have a conversation, which we did. So I hope everybody liked it. We are in From the Flock, which people put their ins and outs and their nooks and crannies in our Discord. We should remind people how they could be involved, though, Brandon.
Yes, if you want to get in the flock, you can go to getintheflock.com. You can also, if you're watching on YouTube, you can hit the join button, because you've probably already hit the like button. You've hit the subscribe. There's also the join button too, if you want to help support the show. And as a reward, we let you into our Discord community, where we have game day chats. We've got our 3 in 3 out channel. We've got our game day chat channel, and we're going to get to our 3 in 3 out channel because we've got some ins and outs. So if you want to be a part of that, go to getintheflock.com.
Very nice. And I'll kick us off here, and you'll know why in a second. You already know why. The listeners will know why, and the viewers, because you, Brandon, you had the first out of the day of the game. You wrote out punting on 4th and 1 and giving up an 80-yard drive. Of course, we talked about it as one of the segments here. It still doesn't make you wrong. You are completely right about that, man.
Well, it's the second part of it. I could have handled punting on 4th and 1 if they pin him deep, they get the stop. It's just that idea of you were that close, you had that opportunity, and then it goes squandered because they just go on this 80-yard touchdown scoring drive where they take a bunch of time off the clock. And then you know that it was the wrong decision.
It to me, I agree. And for me, from Jump Street, I was like, that's a bad decision. I was on Pete's, you know what, from the get go on that one. I thought it was cowardly. What
Yeah.
I think.
We've got Garen coming in. I know a Bobo. Hawk Van Dyke getting the in, changing his pajama bottoms for better Hawkra. We had discussions about this. We had in the Discord. Yes, Dave, he had not changed properly. He did it. I think the Seahawks bounced back after that moment. So in that time, it looked like a good decision by Bloomy there.
Yes, thank you, Bloomy, for cleaning up your trousers. We appreciate that. Car came in with an in. She says Gino is effing clutch today. Yes, this was early, about an hour into the ball game. He was good all game long. We talked about that a lot. Gino really, really played a heck of a ball game, and he deserves a better outcome.
We got Red Wagon giving an in to Cross for defending K9. I think that was when there was some pushing and shoving going on, and I think Charles Cross came in and he helped back up his guy too. Initially, we saw, I think it was in this moment where K9, well, we saw the Steelers throw a punch or at least take a swing at K9, and then on replay we found out that it was K9 like essentially pushing the ball right in the dude's face. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this was one moment where it was a good no call both sides.
Yeah. Sometimes you've got to put a ball in the dude's face and just shove it right in his face and say, yeah, here, take that. Design Pete's Beach House, which is, of course, Amy. She goes in, overcoming penalties to get the end zone touchdown to JSN. Beauty of a ball. Great route. JSN just, he only had 2 targets yesterday, 1 of 2 for 12 yards and a touchdown. Not enough. That's a beautiful one. And that was an instance there where, yeah, we still had some false starts and some things that were, at earlier parts of the season would grind us to a halt. But in that first half, things were firing pretty good offensively, and that was a beautiful, beautiful touch by Gino to JSN the back of the end zone.
Yeah, and just enough touch to get it over the Steelers defender and into the back of the end zone. And before, I think it was Fant that was coming across too. It looked, there was a lot going on that all kind of converged in that one spot, and Gino threw it at just the perfect time. Yeah. We've got Ian Boye Como Va in the Discord. That 4th and 1 punt clogged up my Hawkra. That's one of the situations Pete is always talking about, where you do something statistically wrong to fire up the team, and that's the one time he doesn't do it.
Yep, we're going to keep the outs going. Scott Campbell from Down Under. These are right to it. He says Clint hurt and this, S show defense. You know what he said there?
Catfish.
Yeah, this is right. Right. What am I doing? This catfishing defense. He says, embarrassed at home. It's time to fire people. And again, I know that's going to be the chorus.
Scott was ready to fire people in week 3, though. I think
he was. And again, if that's how you're feeling about it, this game certainly ain't going to help change your mind. Right. It's going to bring more people to Scott's side that change is needed. He also has an out for Waldron, calling a direct snap with the backup center. Why do we do dumb things? I mean, I can't blame him on that one whatsoever. That was the cute for the sake of cute versus, okay, I know it's a weapon we could go to, but is now the right time, Shane? Is now the right time? Or should we just get under center? And there was the one play, Brandon, one of the 10, so it's not even that hard to pick out. That was a under center, run to the left-hand side from K9. It went for like 6-7 yards, but this was the K9 shot out of the cannon type thing. There was a hole. He hit it. Like, dude, let's just do that. He was averaging 5 per. It's like, why do we got to be cute? Get under center, give your best dude the ball. That's K9. 10 touches, even with the shoulder injury. Not enough.
Yeah, I would have liked to see more Sharps in this game too.
Sure.
Like 2 carries, and that was it with an injured K9. We got Ryan, aka Frost, in the Discord. Huge pancake from Forsyth on Gino's end of 3rd quarter run. Love to see the backup having some success.
Yeah, I mean, Forsyth did a nice job, right? I mean, when we all heard coming out of the second half, Forsyth versus Watt. I could tell you, I was clenching a little bit there, Brandon, not feeling so good with it. Always feeling good with it, but maybe not right now. With this out is JSN jiggy with it, which is Lisa in Seattle. Out, kick a field goal when down by 2 scores. Come on, go for it, she says.
We got Samuel Gelber out, the decision to call a trick play, direct snap to K9 with backup center. We talked about that already. And we've got Carr with the out, having to root for the Bears.
Well, yeah, I don't mind the Bears, but I hear you. But I think her overarching point is we gave up the ghost here. We gave up we do not control our
Do not
destiny.
control our own destiny anymore.
I think that's what she's getting at, and I understand that. We talked about midichlorians in the air and what momentum actually is. So we've got to. I hope we could look at this game coming up and leave it on the line. The Cardinals aren't going to care. They're gonna be aggressive. They're gonna go for it. I want us to take that posture also. That doesn't mean go for a 2-point conversion from the 7-yard line, Dan Campbell style, when you could tie the game up after a bogus call takes one away from you. No, I'm not talking about like over aggression, but enough aggression where stats back it up, and it's just the right thing to do for that hawk row that I think was that Sam or was that Garrett talking about it? One of the dudes was talking about it above about the hawk row being misaligned.
Oh yeah.
I think we can do it, Brandon. I'm still confident that we could win a ball game on Sunday against a team that is they're okay, but they're not a good football team by every measure, the Arizona Cardinals. And then the chips fall where they may. And I think the Bears have at least a 50-50 shot of coming through for us. And in this topsy-turvy season with all these giant chunks and giant storylines, would it shock you at all if at the end of Sunday we find ourselves with the same record right back in the playoffs as we did a year before?
And it kind of, even if they were to finish with the same record, to me it doesn't feel as though they're spinning the wheels. It feels, because this season it felt different still than last season. I think that, man, the more I think back to the off season and how that went, I'm starting to feel like there were some moments where, yeah, maybe there were some off season decisions. And the thing that sparked this was seeing Scott in the ins and outs saying that the season is 100% on the coaching staff. I don't know if it is 100% on the coaching staff, because I look at some of the general manager decisions in the offseason and they're kind of coming to play themselves. Those decisions are playing themselves out here too toward the end of the season. So I can't put it 100% on coaches.
Your point is very smart. I mean, we got done last year and Pete and John stood on the podium and said, we know what's wrong. Like, we know exactly where we have to get stronger. But it wasn't what they prioritized. It's just up and down the block. All right, they do the splash with Draymond Jones, but he's not. And they let Al Woods, just walk out the building. Those are different types of players, and they have different skill sets. And maybe we overpay for Draymond. Maybe it ends up being a better contract than it looks like in year one. Still kind of TBD. Not a great year one. That you can't claim that at all. But body type wise, you said you had to get beefier and stronger and meaner, and we didn't, and we're getting blown off the ball. And then you're drafting running backs in the second round, you're taking edge in the second round, where you didn't go take DTs, nose tackles, and the beefier part of the line. So I'm with you. Like, there's got to be accountability there. However, football is a very emotional game, and it's a week-to-week thing. And I keep saying it's a much longer season than people want to give it credit for. And now, yes, now we are down to the wire. However, if we win and we get into the playoffs, and then we have a competitive playoff game, it's going to change the entire tenor of the whole season. I'm willing to let it, at this point, what other choice do we have? Like, let it play out and just see, like, can we get this W and get back in the playoffs and make a little noise? But it's a longer season, man. People always think it's so condensed because it feels fast, but there's so many changes within a season, between injury, who you're playing, when you're playing them, when you're clicking. Like, you change offensive coordinators, like the Ravens, right? The Ravens are, with Monken's offense, they are like in full steamroll mode now. It's going to be very interesting to see if anybody in the AFC could even sniff them, because by the looks of it, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, well, they've already made up the logo of the Super Bowl this year, and I don't know if you've seen kind of the conspiracy theories around it.
Oh, I didn't see this. No.
Oh, man. Well, if you go back the last couple seasons, the colors of the Super Bowl logo, I think, did they skip last year? Because I think last year was just plain color. But if you go back the last few seasons, it's the two teams that are playing in the Super Bowl that the logo color has matched. And this year, the logo color is part purple and part red.
Wow. Interesting. I mean, hey, that's not nothing. I remember our Super Bowl win that there was like a bright action green as part of the Super Bowl logo.
Yeah.
You know, this kind of green that I'm wearing right here on this awesome piece from Simply Seattle. I remember that almost being like a good omen, be like, oh wow, they incorporated some of that bright green in this logo. So
yeah,
interesting. All right. Well, if it's got to be a Ravens, I don't want the Niners there, but if it's got to be Ravens 49ers, then oh man,
is there another red team in the NFC that we
the
can
Bucks,
root for
the
instead?
Buccaneers.
The Bucks.
If they have
there we go. Ravens, Bucks going to the Super Bowl. Here we go.
All right. I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Bears.
And go Bucks.
And go Bucks, possibly.